Once again, good morning. Welcome to St. Mark. Great to have you all here on this Father's Day. It's a Tuesday evening. Dad pulls into the driveway after another long day. Another early alarm, another packed schedule, another meeting that probably should have been an email. And he walks through the door and immediately one of his kids asks, "Hey, Dad, did you get that thing signed for school today?" Then his wife says, "Honey, dinner's almost ready, but can you help set the table?" He smiles as best as he can, kisses her on the cheek, and goes to set the table. But his exhausted eyes say something different. They whisper, "I've already given everything I have today. Wasn't that enough?" Dads, maybe you felt that way. Like all your hard work, the stress that you carry, the silent battles that you fight, and the sacrifices that you make don't seem to add up to much. Your effort is assumed, your providing is expected, and your presence is seen but not always appreciated. If that's you, God has a special word for you this Father's Day. And it's not a word of shame, it's not a list of do-better tasks. It's a word of grace from the God who builds, who steps into your pressure, into your doubts, and into all of that invisible work. We're actually going to start with that section from Mark chapter 12, when those religious leaders tried to trap Jesus with that trick question, is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Jesus dodged that question with a coin and a brilliant response. Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. But Jesus wasn't just talking about coins. He wasn't just talking about taxes. He was talking about something deeper, something spiritual, something eternal. You see, that coin bears Caesar's image, so it belongs to Caesar. But you bear God's image, so you belong to God. And that means you, Dad. Your life, your leadership, your time, your family, your love, your money, they don't belong to you. They belong to the one who made you. You bear God's image. You belong to Him. And before you're a father, before you're a provider or a protector, you are His. This isn't going to be about doing more for God or doing more for your family. This is about giving yourself to the God who gave Himself for you. You are not a machine, even though you try to convince yourself that you are. I've done the same thing. First and foremost, you are an image bearer. Your value, your worth, is not in your performance, it's in belonging. And you belong to the God who builds. Which means you don't belong to our culture's myth of the perfect dad. You know the one. He's able to provide lavishly for his family. Huge house. Every opportunity for his kids. Financial security for generations. He's emotionally strong and available at all times. He never loses his cool, never raises his voice. He's always in control. He can fix anything, from a leaky faucet to a family crisis. And he's a spiritual leader too. Family devotions at bedtime every single night. He prays every morning by himself with his Bible on the kitchen table. He's never at a loss. He never wavers in his faith. Oh, and of course, he still has time and energy to mow the lawn, to grill the steaks, to coach the team, and to give sage advice at any stage of life, all with a smile for social media. But the problem is, if you start to think this guy exists, he doesn't. Because that's, once again, an AI-generated image. But we start to convince ourselves that this guy exists because we might start to hear or see about dads like that, and all of a sudden we're tempted to think that everybody else is pulling it off and we're struggling to keep up. So if you scroll through social media as I do, you start to see all of the highlight reels. The dad who built a treehouse with his bare hands, and then later that night went to the church council meeting. He takes pictures of the gourmet pancakes that he cooked for his kids in the morning, all before running a marathon. No, that guy does not exist. And then you look at your life and you look at your unfinished honey-do list and the pile of unpaid bills on the counter, and you start to feel like a failure as a father and a provider. And let's be real, this is more than just emotional. Because June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And the statistics are heartbreaking. Men commit suicide at a rate 4 times that of women. According to the CDC, over 70% of all suicides in the U.S. are men. And middle-aged men are at the highest risk. Many suffer in silence because they think they can't show any weakness. They can't ask for help. Because that myth of the perfect dad says they have to fix everything, including themselves. But on the inside, they're falling apart. And if that's you, or if that is someone that you know and care about, you are not alone. You matter, you are loved, and God sees you. And into that myth of the perfect dad, and into the seriousness of men's mental health, God speaks the truth. Because you were never called to be the perfect man, the perfect husband, the perfect dad. God simply asks you to be present and faithful. And so in Psalm 127, the psalmist gently reminds us, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Dad, you were never meant to carry the weight of your family alone, because God is the master builder of your house. He is the ultimate provider and protector. Now, yes, He has called you to work hard and to love well, but always and only relying on Him and His strength. That verse continues, unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. So how many nights have you lain awake, worrying about your family's future, thinking that it all depends on you? The very next verse of Psalm 127 goes on to say, in vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for He grants sleep to those He loves. What a freeing truth for dads. Because in the middle of those early alarms and the long hours and the late nights, God lovingly says to you, son, you can rest. I'm watching over you and your family. The myth of the perfect dad says, do everything, fix everything, be everything. And yet God says, I am your father. Let me be your everything. And just like we had on Mother's Day, God spoke a very special word to moms, and these very same words echo to us dads as well. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So when you feel weak, Dad, that's when God's grace and God's power will work in you and through you. God's grace doesn't show up after you have it all together. In fact, His grace meets you right in your weakness, in the financial strain, in those times when you snap at your kids and then feel horrible afterwards. God's grace and God's power tell you that you don't have to be the perfect dad. You need Jesus. And the good news is that He's right by your side, building your family as He's building you too. So what would that look like? What would it mean to live like a man who is being built by God? First of all, it does not mean that you are going to have an easy Instagram perfect life. It doesn't mean that your kids are going to listen to every single word you have to say and behave themselves like little angels all the time. It does not mean that your endless to-do list is suddenly going to magically disappear. It doesn't even mean that your wife, your fiance, or your girlfriend is going to suddenly turn into the woman that you want or need her to be. But it does mean that you can move forward with purpose, even when life gets messy. You don't have to have it all together. By God's grace and power, you can embrace your calling as the leader of your household. You don't have to wait to initiate that heart-to-heart talk with your son. You don't have to wait until you have it all together or know exactly what you're going to say to lead your family in prayer. You don't even have to wait to mentor that teenager at church. You can step into that role and into that calling with God's grace and power. Because the daily choices that you make are quietly shaping your heart. And every step of faith that you take is multiplied in the lives of those who follow you. Those daily habits, those daily choices can build a legacy. And the greatest legacy that you can leave as a father is a family who follows Jesus. So by God's grace and His power, now you can show up and you can be present even when you feel inadequate. Your presence as a father is so much more important than perfection. It means that you can serve instead of demanding, because Christ-like leadership lifts others up. It means that you can build those habits, those spiritual rhythms with your family. It doesn't have to be perfect. Start small, be consistent. Make sure that they're grace-filled. It means that you can lean on God's strength, because His Holy Spirit will help you love well even when you're running on empty. And finally, make sure that you keep the big picture in mind. Because Psalm 127 describes children like arrows in the hands of a warrior. You have been called to shape those arrows that are going to be sent out into the world. But remember that God is the archer. He's the one who determines where they go for the benefit of his kingdom. Hopefully you see that fatherhood is not just a role or a duty, it's a calling. And your Father, the God who builds, will equip you for that calling. And just like we did for Mother's Day, I want to take just a few moments to recognize and acknowledge all of the different fathers and father figures that we have in our lives and in this room. First of all, to those biological dads who are in the middle of midnight feedings, school drop-offs, household chores, and driver's ed. God sees you. Your labor in the Lord is not in vain. To the adoptive dads, foster dads, God sees you. Because your open heart reflects his adopting love for us. To the stepdads who are navigating complex family dynamics with grace and perseverance, God sees you. To the spiritual fathers, the grandfathers, the mentors, the coaches, the big brothers in the faith who pour themselves out, God sees you. And to those men who are waiting to one day be fathers, who are now uncles or sponsors or godfathers or just mentors to those young men at church, God sees you too. Because fatherhood is not one size fits all. Whatever shape it takes in your story, God meets you right where you are, and his grace fills you up to cover what you lack and even more. Your cup overflows with God's grace and strength, even when you don't feel like it. So to every father, every mentor, every man who has poured himself out for others, God sees you and God is with you. The God who builds is right there next to you. The God who gave his Son for you will never walk away from what belongs to him. And dads, he's proud to call you his son too. God tells you today, I see you, I'm proud of you. You are enough because my grace is enough. Amen.